With so much of the weight loss industry focusing on unsustainable diets, it's no wonder that at least 80% of people who lose weight then regain the same weight back again, which means that more than 80% of our dieting attempts and efforts fail in the long term. And what that does is it creates unhealthy relationships with food. We associate certain foods with being good or bad. We feel guilty after eating. We feel like we shouldn't have eaten XYZ. We get obsessive over counting calories and what to eat. And we get down into the little nitty-gritty minutiae, which actually doesn't have a bigger impact. And what are we left with? Well, we're left with our weight being in the place where we don't want it to be. And then all of these unhelpful thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors that make it really, really difficult to use a more healthy, sustainable, holistic, lifestyle-focused approach to weight loss, where we lose the weight, we keep it off, and we don't ever need to diet again. So my job today is 4 things. I want to help you break free from the diet mentality. I want to help you understand how to heal your relationship with food. I want to help you create a more intuitive and mindful approach to eating. And finally, create sustainable weight loss that's realistic, that's enjoyable, and that's sustainable. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about my story. So my name is Dr. Aileen. I'm a medical doctor. I'm a women's health expert. I'm a TEDx speaker. And I'm also a former NHS general practitioner. But I'm also a recovered binge eater, stress eater, over-exerciser, and burn-out survivor. I was the GP who always had a stash of chocolate in her consulting room drawer, bracing herself for a rough day on call. I'm the parent who would come home, pour herself a gin and tonic, and then take it upstairs to drink while turning on the shower, desperate not to be asked another question, especially not, "What's for tea?" And I was the junior doctor who would work a 13-hour shift, come home while everyone else was asleep, lights off, and open the freezer up and scoop into that tub of Ben & Jerry's ice cream to soothe the stress and fatigue instead of taking myself to bed. And around a decade ago, I had this epiphany which helped me to eradicate these unhealthy habits, to heal my own relationship with food. An epiphany that also led me to leaving my job as an NHS GP 5 years ago in May 2019. And I've helped countless other women across the globe to do the same. So over the last almost 8 years since the conception of my business, I've helped these ladies to eliminate stress, to improve their energy levels, to reclaim their self-confidence, to improve their relationship with food and lose weight in a healthy and sustainable way by building healthy habits and making sustainable lifestyle habits. Now, what I've learned is it doesn't matter if you do keto or intermittent fasting, counting calories or counting macros, Weight Watchers or Slimming World. When it comes to weight loss, all of these diets work. You've maybe tried them before and had some success. Because weight loss really is just a simple mathematical equation of calories in versus calories out. So if the equation is so simple, then why is weight loss so difficult? Well, what if it wasn't the diet that you needed? What if the diet wasn't fit for purpose? What if it wasn't you that was at fault, but the process was fundamentally flawed or even rigged to be unsustainable and keep you going back to line somebody else's pockets? What if instead we took the science, the medical research, and your experience at face value and finally saw with over an 80% failure rate, we need another way to lose weight and to keep it off? Because the truth is, the diet industry has been feeding you a lie. You've been conditioned to believe that weight loss is as simple as eating less and moving more. And the diet industry, valued at $470 billion globally, and it's growing, has us all focusing on the wrong things, leading us to think that we're at fault for not having enough discipline. But you don't need more discipline, more willpower, or to get up at 5 a.m. to hit the gym before work. You do not need to starve yourself to count calories or to weigh every morsel of food. And you definitely don't need to cut carbs, give up chocolate, or go teetotal. What I've come to learn is not only do traditional diets rarely work in the long term, and I did a whole TEDx talk about this, but I've learned that they damage our relationship with food and our relationship with ourselves, which I recently wrote an article that was published in Hello on just that. Most of the hang-ups that you have around food are directly attributable to the diet industry. Whether you've been on a diet before or had a mother, aunt, or friend who has been, or maybe you've read about it in magazines or 21st century social media, it's the diet culture. And the diet industry has a lot to answer for. So what I usually like to do when I deliver this workshop in person is I have a big bag of foods. And I get people to rummage through the bag of foods and put them into 2 categories, and they get to name them. And often what comes up is good or bad, healthy or unhealthy. And there's no judgment, there's no wrong answer there. But that in itself shows that possibly there are some areas of our relationship with food that we need to look at. So I like to label these categories as optimal and non-optimal. So we have optimal foods that are naturally occurring. They've not been processed or altered in any way. They come out of the ground, off a tree, from a farm. So these are like meat, eggs, nuts, seeds, fruit, vegetables, beans, pulses, grains, all of those beautiful things. And then the non-optimal foods are foods that are processed. So if a food has more than 5 ingredients, it is considered to be an ultra-processed food. So the next time you pick up a chocolate bar, I want you to have a little look at the ingredients, and I want you to see, well, how many things are there that you cannot even pronounce? But doesn't this make perfect sense that we label food as good and bad because we've been conditioned to believe that way? But instead, I want you to think about them not being nutritionally optimal, like from a health perspective, they're hardly good for you. But have you ever noticed that when you cut out these foods completely, you want them so much more? When we're dieting, when we're trying to lose weight or improve our health using a rules-based approach, we're setting ourselves up to fail. It is exceptionally difficult to follow rules. Our unconscious mind is battling against us because we've just eliminated one of our favorite foods, thinking that if we don't buy it into the house, we're not going to have it. Well, what's actually going to happen is you'll probably want it again at some point in your life, and then you'll end up overindulging, further impacting that unhealthy relationship with food. So how do we unpick it? Well, here's some questions for you to consider. What if these things were just foods? What if they didn't have that pull or draw? And how do we create that? Before we go there, I want you to just have a little think for a minute about, and you can pause this. What does relationship with food mean to you? Now, there's no right or wrong answers here. It's a term that some people use and some people don't. And it's going to be different to everyone. So have a little think about what that term means to you. Press pause and then circle back. And then the next question is, what would you like to change about your relationship with food? And I want you to be careful that there isn't any inner critic self-judgment here. But what would you like to change or enhance or optimize or improve or swap out about your relationship with food? Press pause And I want you just to explore. So, by definition, a healthy relationship with food involves accepting all kinds of food to help feed and nourish your body while enjoying what you eat. So there's 3 important components there. All kinds of food, feed and nourish while enjoying. There's a reason my company's called Nourish. It's about nourishing our whole selves. You notice it didn't say that a healthy relationship with food is plant-based, or a healthy relationship with food means no processed food, or that food is just fuel. It's about feeding and nourishing. It's about enjoying. It's about having everything as part of our diet. Whereas that's not what the diet industry advocates, is it? An unhealthy relationship with food can also look like feeling the need to earn your meals through exercise or restriction, feeling guilt over food choices, having strict rules around eating in portions, and focusing on the calorific content of the food you eat instead of the nourishment that it offers you. So avocado, tube of Smarties, they're the same amount of calories. They're going to have the same impact on fat loss, but one has got way more nutrients. Healthy fats, vitamin A, D, E, and K are only present in fats. It is so, so, so important because they are our fat-soluble vitamins. So often this impaired relationship with food can follow us through our lives long after the diet finishes. So let's change that narrative, because these foods are not bad. They're not cheap foods. They're not fattening foods. They're not wrong. They're non-optimal foods and not nutritionally optimal or optimal for health, but they're still foods that I believe, even as a medical doctor, should be kept in your diet in moderation as 20 or even 10% of your daily intake. Because they're highly processed, and as we said, more than 5 ingredients falls into the ultra-processed category. So I'm probably not teaching you anything you don't know here. Maybe some new concepts to start to shift the way your brain works, or maybe understanding where you've gained some of the patterns, because they're not your fault. You know, if you want to go and become a lawyer, pretty much the only way you can do that is go to law school. And if you focus, if you show up to the lectures, you'll get there. But weight loss is different. Weight loss is tricky, it's difficult, it's commercialized, it's unsustainable. It's not health focused for most diet approaches. What if instead of the pursuit of weight loss, we went on a pursuit of health and the weight came off as a byproduct of nourishing and caring for our mind, our body, and our soul? Not just by focusing on food, but by focusing on managing stress, increasing energy levels, really taking care of ourselves, improving our sleep, healthy boundaries, preparing and planning, building healthy habits, planning food ahead of time, exercising because we enjoy it. So most people know that eating these foods in moderation is the way forward, but for most people it's close to impossible. And why is this? It's because of something called the bliss point. So I remember in 2013, I would be standing at the freezer door, scooping ice cream straight from the tub into my mouth. It was dark. It was silent. And I was alone because everyone else was asleep. And then the freezer would go beep, and it would scream at me to put the tub back in the freezer and close the door. So what did I do? Close the door, kept on scooping. I just finished a horrendous 13-hour shift, but I couldn't turn my brain off or get to sleep. I knew I needed to go to bed, but I was drawn to this food. Other days I would do what was called a clean binge, and I would consume bowls of cereal and raisins and nuts and then feel overfull, nauseated, and quite frankly, pissed off with myself. Why, oh why couldn't I get a handle on my nutrition? Why did I keep doing this to myself even though it was unhelpful and I wanted to stop? Well, I now believe it's a form of self-sabotage. It's a form of self-harm. It's not a logical choice. It's a release. And there's two big reasons why it happens: stress and fatigue. As I share in my TEDx talk, the combination of stress and exhaustion creates hormonal imbalance within the body, which leads us to craving sugar and carbs. And I personally believe that overeating and binge eating, which are not the same thing, and you can have binge tendencies without clinical binge eating disorder, it is not a logical process. It is a deep-rooted pathway, a coping mechanism, a form of self-care or self-soothing or comfort. Form of self-harm. That's why we have a mental health nurse and therapist on board our team here at Nourish to help people to reprogram this part, the brain, our mindset. So we mentioned earlier the bliss point. Ultra-processed foods create something called this bliss point, which was termed in the mid-1900s. It was an American market researcher called Howard Moskowitz. And he coined this phrase as being the point where the level of saltiness, sweetness, and richness were just right as perceived by the consumer. And the processed food industry invests billions into achieving the perfect combinations of fat and sugar as well as texture to optimize their bliss point. So when this was discovered, like a whole new generation of chemically processed, craveable foods was created. Now we're in 2024 and well, there are many, many different types of Smarties. You get mini ones, you get giant ones, you get standard ones, you get different coloured ones, you get pink ones, you get white ones at Christmas time, you get red ones, you get Smartie cookies, you get Smartie brownies, you get Smartie muffins. The list goes on. So in summary, to heal your relationship with food, you need to take a few steps. And this workshop today is the start. This is the foundation. Think of this as the seed being planted. It's your job to nurture it, to water it so it grows, so it germinates, so it blossoms. Step 1, accepting that traditional diets have got a ridiculously high failure rate, and it isn't you who is at fault. It's not you. You do not need another diet, another strategy. Instead, we need to focus on the root cause of why you're consuming those extra calories. Step 2, de-glorifying and enjoying non-optimal foods, not bad, not unhealthy, not treat foods, as part of a balanced diet, 10 to 20%. So adding them in there, allowing yourself, this is your permission slip, Dr. Aileen says. Step 3, taking care of your background daily stress and having tools to manage acute stress in the moment. If you're anything like the ladies that I support, then you probably got a fair significant amount of work stress, family stress, life stress, that we can't change your circumstances, but we can change how you manage, we can change how you see them. Step 4, sleeping soundly and regulating your energy levels throughout the day. There's 3 things that create energy: sleep, nutrition, but also how do we spend our energy through the day? Do you have boundaries? Do you take breaks? How do you recharge? Step 5, understanding and accepting the science of ultra-processed foods and the messed up ethics of the ultra-processed food industry and their need to perfect this perfect bliss point so they can sell more products and drive profit at our expense, at the expense of our health. So instead of traditional restrictive diets, I am inviting you to try a more well-being focused approach to weight loss instead. Because when we sleep well, when we manage our stress, when we implement healthy boundaries, it is so much easier to make healthy choices and to lose weight. It doesn't matter how many times you've tried or for how many years or decades. I promise you, there is another way. Right here, right now, you get to choose different. You get to create what I call the paradigm shift. But I get it. Letting go of the rules of dieting is scary. Or as Helen, one of my one-to-one patients, so eloquently put it, she said, asking me to let go of the rules and move towards intuitive eating is like asking me to trust a cheating boyfriend. She was scared. She hadn't done it before. She hadn't had anybody that had explored it in this way with her. So let's start slowly. Instead of obsessive calorie counting, yo-yo dieting, or all or nothing approaches, what small step could you take today to invite a more balanced approach to nutrition whilst improving your well-being? The goal here is to build sustainable, healthy habits that compound over time and result in an enjoyable, holistic, and sustainable approach to weight loss. So I have an invitation for you. Now, I'm very selective in who I work with, and this work it's not for everybody. But if you've learned something about yourself today and you feel pulled to explore how me or my team might be able to help you with managing stress, solving comfort eating, removing yourself from the dieting cycle and losing weight in a healthy, sustainable way, then I want to let you know that we have a couple of opportunities for you. So we work with ladies both one-to-one, there's sometimes a wait list, and in small group modalities of up to 10 ladies in a group coaching container. All of our work is delivered remote and online. So if you feel pulled to explore this, and drop me an email or go to my website, www.draileen, spelled DOCTOR, Aileen.com, and complete the application form. You will then be reached out to by me personally, and we can book in a conversation to chat one-to-one to see whether this would be a good fit and what that would look like. Again, we don't work with everyone. This work isn't for everybody. But if I can't support you, I'm really well connected and I'd be delighted to signpost you to somebody else who can. Take care. I hope you've learned something, and we'll chat soon.